We have Ohio State against Texas in the Cotton Bowl in the college football semifinal. The first semifinal, by the way, is tomorrow night between Notre Dame and Penn State. That will be an interesting. We'll touch on that just for a moment here in a little bit. But the first thing to talk about with this game with Ohio State and Texas is the weather. And I know it's in Texas, but they're expecting a winter storm there. Today, tomorrow, 3 to 6 inches, icy conditions. Remember, they don't have the manpower or the machines to clear that stuff. So that area all of a sudden comes to a standstill. There has been talk, Kris Drew, that they might move this game. They don't want to do that with the NFL, a triple header Saturday. But what are you hearing? Are they going to play this game Friday night?
I think they are going to play it. Moving it would be worst case scenario, obviously, with this being on the step up in the NFL this weekend as well. They don't want to move the game, but there is some concern given how they drive down there when things get a little icy and slick.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the concerns when they open to expand to this playoff this deep into January, that you would get situations like this. I don't think they'll move it, but I know that it is being talked about a lot.
Now, and when we say move it, we're talking about day and
Dates,
time. Is
not
there
location.
any chance of them moving the location out of Texas to, say, Arizona into the dome there in Arizona? Could they do that, or they don't want to do that because of travel?
The bowl committees would have to sign off on that, and they would lose so much money, and then the travel on top of it. So they couldn't do that. If they did do it, I mean, if it was. They won't do that, Ray. They can't.
I didn't think they could either. I didn't know if you had heard anything. Okay, so let's talk Ohio State, Texas. When you look at the Longhorns, this is a team that, to this point, I think, kind of mirrors Ohio State, right? They got speed on the outside. They've got a quarterback who's been there. They've got some strength up front with that defensive line. They're athletic in the backfield. How good is Texas? And talk about the matchup. Let's go right there.
So Texas is fascinating because them, like Ohio State, they have one of the more expensive rosters in college football, and they're very deep and loaded. They've consistently recruited at a high clip, and kind of the click we've seen with Ohio State the last couple games has been the realization this is a $20 million roster with so much talent. If they're firing on all cylinders, there's no one in the country that can beat them. Well, Texas operates in the same field. Texas this year just hasn't had a game where they've been clicking on all cylinders. They've had sometimes the offensive line be really good, sometimes the defensive line be really good, sometimes the secondary's been good, sometimes the quarterback's good, and they haven't put it all together. But when they have in flashes for at least a quarter, we saw what they were able to do against Arizona State. Now, then they sputter. They do the weird thing where they're out of sync sometimes, where the fire isn't there, where they're playing down to opponents, and because of that, they've been in some tricky games. Golden, the kid on the outside, the receiver number 2, electric speed. I'm talking like top 3 fastest receiver in the country. He's up there with Evan Stewart, the Oregon receiver who gave Ohio State problems the first time around, not the second. He's really good, and Quinn Ewers throws an excellent deep ball, obviously former Buckeye Quinn Ewers. So Texas presents a unique opportunity because they're the only team maybe outside of Georgia that can match up athletically everywhere in trenches and outside. But they've struggled putting it together this year.
Okay, let's go to the quarterbacks. Will Howard may be playing his best football right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this college football playoff run. I haven't watched every game of Quentin Ewers, so I'm not going to pretend that I do.
Well, I have.
But
look.
Okay, so that's why I'm turning this question to you. I know you have. I saw him so far in the playoffs, and I have to say, and if I'm giving him a 1 to 10 right now, I'm 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like his reading. He seems to me, anyways, to get rattled a little bit, kind of happy feet. But talk about Quentin Ewers, Will Howard, these two quarterbacks.
So Quinn Ewers is like your stereotypical 7-on-7 quarterback. He's so good at 7-on-7. You can see the way the ball jumps off his hand. He's got elite arm talent. But it does feel like a lot of times the biggest complaint about him is he won't step into throws because he's so worried about getting hit. And he's kind of a statue. Doesn't really run
I've
run
noticed
around
that
a lot.
as well. Sometimes he'll throw off that back foot.
So he fades away a lot because
yes.
he's had the arm talent to do that in high school and early parts of college against bad teams in college. And he hasn't shaken that habit. And because of that, his footwork's a little bit out of whack sometimes. And that's why you see some of, the interceptions at times. But additionally, like, he doesn't read the field for a guy that's a senior, and he is.
I agree.
So the one read stuff, the deep ball stuff, if it's a one-on-one shot, he'll take it, and those will look really good coming out of his hands. But if you can force him to multiple third and longs, he's destined to give you the ball at least once.
Okay, what about Will Howard? How is he playing right now?
Will Howard's almost the opposite, not the 7-on-7 quarterback. Doesn't have the huge arm, has to step into every throw, so he can't fade off of his back foot. And we're seeing Will Howard right now play his very best football, and I think that Ryan Day has kind of pivoted a little bit. Instead of don't make mistakes and we're going to quick game teams to death, let's take shots because we have the biggest skill advantage outside of everybody in the country, led by Jeremiah Smith. Oh, and by the way, Emeka Egbuka is the all-time leading receiver in Ohio State history, and he's the number 2 on this team.
And our 3 would be most teams 1.
I mean, shoot, I know maybe I shouldn't, but I will. I know at least 3 teams that have offered Carnell Tate over $750,000 to come be their number 1 next season.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about at Ohio State. That's the talent advantage.
I think Will Howard has made himself some money in this playoff run, don't you?
I do.
He's looked pretty sharp.
He has. So today, I'm sure I'll come back for some draft stuff, but today I have him in that mid-second round grade with a chance to sneak up into the early second round with a continued big performance against Texas.
Yeah, he's a big, strong guy. He's kind of been there. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about are these fronts. The Ohio State offensive line has some question marks, even though I think they've played pretty well in this playoff run. The Texas defensive front, real good. On the other side, the Texas offensive line is real good. Ohio State defensive line is real good. So take us down into the trenches here.
Do you know who won Freshman of the Year in college football?
No.
Colin Simmons, not Jeremiah Smith. That is the defensive end for Texas.
Oh.
He is Jeremiah Smith-like, but make it a defensive lineman.
What's this guy's name?
Colin Simmons.
Okay.
Won Freshman of the Year over Jeremiah. Lanky, explosive. Looks a little bit like Chase Young did as a freshman, but is playing a ton. Big sack guy, sack expert, wins with speed and with power. One of those guys in Texas that came in ready and contributed it immediately. Now, this will just be an extended challenge. Right now, Donovan Jackson has faced Pierce, who I think is going to be a top 15 pick. He's faced Abdul Carter, he's faced Birch, and he's faced Mateo. All guys he's done a pretty good job against. Now, Colin Simmons offers a different mix because he's explosive, fast, and strong. So it's a full pool of moves on that Texas defensive end. He's the one I'm a little concerned about because he's so explosive and they can move him anywhere. And again, he's their Jeremiah Smith, and they keep him pretty fresh. Their offensive line, they got 3 NFL guys on it, Texas.
Right.
They got 3 NFL
and
guys.
2 of them, they're talking about first-round draft picks.
Oh, I mean, if Banks plays, he is a top 15 pick.
What do you mean if he plays?
So he got dinged up in the Arizona State game.
Oh, okay.
He got dinged up a little bit. He probably is going to play, but I'm not allowed to unless it gets confirmed that he's going to play.
Okay.
Because you know how that whole world gets.
I do.
But he's a guy that today could drop off at 20 NFL teams and would play right or left tackle for him. That's how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good in pass pro, but he's a road grader in the run game. And for Ohio State, Tyleik Williams and JT need to do a good job of blowing up the run because Quinn Ewers is worse when there's no play action element to his game. So, I mean, Banks versus JT, Jack versus him as well. I mean, that's a chance for those 2 guys to make a lot of money and impact the game in a positive way.
Well, I love our defensive line. And
they're rotating now more than ever.
I know. I noticed that, too. Okay. The other part that's a big aspect of this game, Sarkisian for Texas. And it seems to me this team is well-schooled offensively, but they come out quick in watching them 3 times this year. You've watched them more. And then they kind of settle in, and then they kind of disappear till like the 3rd, 4th quarter, and they come back and do what they need to do to get their wins. Ryan Day has certainly had questions with him as a head coach. How do you look at this collision of Sarkisian and Ryan Day, 2 coaches that have some question marks over them, even though Sarkisian is getting a lot of run right now for the job he's doing there?
So you and I sat and talked about this at great length probably like 3 years ago in terms of NFL stuff. We see NFL teams come out very quickly sometimes and score a lot in the first quarter, and then we see it go away. And we heard NFL quarterbacks talking about the script. Sark on the script is a top 3 play caller, top 3 sequencer, probably in all of football, regardless of level. So that means when you have all week, your first 3 drives, you know exactly what you're going to call each play.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Sark really good on that, and then he does the thing where he tries to get into the perfect play call, I think, for the rest of the game, and because of that, he ends up overthinking it, and the offense sputters. And they go on the halftime. Got a little break, a little time to put together the script for the first drive of the third quarter. They always come out, first drive of the third quarter, do really well. So it feels like Sark pre-gaming does a really good job, but sometimes when the bullets start flying, he gets a little tight, and the offense sputters because of it. Okay. So that is the reason, I believe, for the quick starts that Texas has, and kind of the sputtering we see in the middle. But with that being said, they're so dangerous outside that they're always one or two chunk plays away from scoring in the middle of any quarter.
Ryan Day and Chip Kelly seem to have been on the same page last couple of weeks. I don't know if Chip Kelly has called any better games than he did last week.
We're calling it the skip the appetizer games, Ray.
I like that.
No appetizers, only deep shots. I think that they've discovered that to loosen up Will Howard, the best thing you can do for him is to call shots early. And when he gets his confidence going, he's the best quarterback left in the playoffs when his confidence is going. And so instead of trying to march down the field to these methodical drives to start the game, handoff, 6 yard out, it's 1, 2, 3, boom, where's Jeremiah? Let's take some shots. Let's throw the first punch and see how our opponents react, which is why I think if we do win the toss, I think Ohio State will elect to take the ball.
How's their back four? Our back 4 or 5 are really good. How's Texas D-backs?
They got the Thorpe Award winner back there, best DB in college football, playing corner. So it'll be him on Jeremiah Smith, matched up shadowing. So that's one that I'm really, really intrigued about. But other than that, I think our back group is better. Lathan Ransom has been lights out, and he's made himself a lot of money. But I'm really interested to see Denzel Burke take on Golden. The one thing that Denzel Burke has had some problems with this year is deep speed. Golden is fast. But you can't put Igbinosun on him because Burke is faster than Igbinosun. So I'm curious to see how Denzel Burke handles that challenge. And then I'm curious to see if he is struggling at any point, how quickly will they go to the kid from Cincinnati, Jermaine Matthews, who came in at times during the Tennessee game to deal with the speed.
It should be really good. Okay, is this a 38-35 game? Something like that?
That's what I have it as, actually.
You have us winning or losing?
I have us winning. I have us winning between 3 and 7.
Okay,
so,
high scoring.
High scoring. I think this will be a shootout. These are two offensive minds that are too good for this not to be a shootout. But, of course, we'll have to see when we get there because I thought the same thing about the Oregon game.
All right, my friend. Thanks for coming in this morning.
You.
He is the best. He's my good friend, Kris Drew. He's our Buckeye insider setting it up. It's Friday night. We'll join the network at 6, 7:30 with that kickoff right around there. We've got the Buckeyes and Texas college football semifinal. Kris, before I let you go, I promised the audience real quick, how do you see Penn State, Notre Dame?
I like Penn State big. Shout out Drew Aller from Medina High School.
All right, there you go. Kris Drew with us, WAKR.